Chapter 12 of The Mansion of Mystery. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Dale Hodge. The Mansion of Mystery by Chester K. Steele. Chapter 12, For and Against. There was a moment of intense silence throughout the courtroom. Every eye was turned on Mary Billings, who pursed up her lips more closely than ever. "You'll not answer?" thundered Coroner Busby. "Mr. Coroner," began Raymond, rising, "is it legally necessary that she answer? Remember, she is here without proper legal counsel." "Silence. Yes, she must answer, or I shall have to commit her as a witness, if for nothing else. Girl, are you going to answer or not?" "Sure, and Chief, will you call a policeman?" went on the coroner, turning to the chief of police. He was a fairly good judge of human character. At the sight of the blue coat, the domestic wilted and began to sob. "Oh, don't take me to prison," she wailed. "You prefer to answer?" "Yes, if I must. But I think Miss Margaret the sweetest little lady—" "Never mind that. When did the girl and her stepmother quarrel last? Come now, tell me the plain truth," and the coroner put as much of sternness as possible in his voice. "Well, then, if yez has got to know, it was on the marnin' av the murder, sir," sniffled the servant girl. "When was this?" "Right after breakfast. They had some words at the table, too." "What was said? Repeat the exact words if you can," and the coroner leaned forward expectantly while many in the courtroom held their breath. "Mrs. Langmore said she wished Miss Margaret was off the face of the earth, and that she'd be after and seein' that the dear girl wasn't in the house much longer. 'Twas a very bitter scene, and me heart went out to the dear girl." "And what did Miss Margaret reply to that?" "She said it was her father's house, and she would stay as long as her father wished her to, and it was her father's house, too." "And after that?" "A whole lot more followed, which Oi didn't ketch, for Oi am no eavesdropper. But Oi did hear Mrs. Langmore, in a perfect rage, cry out that she'd kill Miss Margaret if the girl didn't moind her." "And then?" "Miss Margaret said she would do as she pleased, that she was her own mistress, and Oi was glad to hear her say it. Mrs. Langmore went on wid her quarrel, sure, and she had the divil's own tongue, so she had. Then she must have caught hold of Miss Margaret, for Oi heard the girl cry out to let go or she'd strike her down. Then there was more words, hotter and hotter, and Mrs. Langmore said she would make the girl mind as sure as fate, and then Miss Margaret got roused up, and she said for Mrs. Langmore to beware, that she had Southern blood in her veins, and she wouldn't be accountable for what she did if her stepmother went too far." There was a pause, and a murmur ran through the round of the little courtroom. The testimony seemed to be highly important, and many shook their heads. The girl and her stepmother had certainly had a bitter quarrel. The girl had hot Southern blood in her veins, and the bitterness had ended in the tragedy. In the minds of many, it was only a question of what the extenuating circumstances might be. "Was Mr. Langmore present at this quarrel?" asked the coroner after another pause. "He was at the breakfast table, but after that he went to the bank." "Did you hear anything more?" "Not right away, sir. Oi went to me work. When Mr. Langmore came from the bank, Oi heard him talking to Miss Margaret." "What was said then?" "Oi don't know 'zactly, exceptin' that he said he was sorry she and her stepmother had quarreled, and he wanted her to make it up wid his wife." "And what did Miss Margaret say to that?" "She said that all she wanted was to be left alone." "What else?" "Oi didn't hear anything more, as Oi went to the ciller for coal. By and by Oi see Miss Margaret in the garden cryin'. Oi wanted to go to her, but Mrs. Langmore kim to the kitchen, and Oi had to attend to me work." "How did Mrs. Langmore seem to appear when she came to the kitchen?" "Sure, and she was very excited and finding more fault than ever. She stayed only a few minutes, and then went to the library, and that was the very last I saw of her. I'm sorry she's dead, but she had that devil's own temper," and the domestic heaved a long sigh. "That will do. You may sit down." The coroner looked around the courtroom. "Is Dr. Barden present?" For reply, the young physician came forward from one side of the room. He looked pale and slightly troubled. In a low voice he corroborated the testimony already given regarding the finding of the two bodies, and told what he had done in his effort to restore Mr. Langmore to life. "I thought there might be a spark there still, but I was mistaken," he went on. "He looked so natural, and Mrs. Langmore looked natural too, for the matter of that, but both were stone dead. What was the cause of death? That is something of a mystery. I have tried my best to get at the bottom of it, but I cannot, nor can my colleague, Dr. Soper." "Were the pair strangled, smothered, poisoned?" suggested the coroner. "I have a theory that they were poisoned, but not in an ordinary way. Neither Dr. Soper nor myself could find any traces of ordinary poison." "What is your theory?" "Something was used to stupefy them, and so much was used that it killed them." "In that case the murder might have been unintentional?" "Yes. Somebody might have thought to stupefy Mr. Langmore and then rob him, but the drug, being too powerful, or used too long, might have done its deadly work. Then the crime may have been discovered by Mrs. Langmore, and the murderer might have turned on her to conceal his first wrongdoing." "Have you any idea of the nature of the poison?" "No, excepting that it had a very powerful odor. When I bent over Mr. Langmore I got several whiffs of it, and it made me sick at the stomach, but the odor was soon gone." "And you have no idea what the poison was?" "No, nor has Dr. Soper. It may be something new or something little known. Chemists are constantly discovering new things," went on the young physician, bound to clear himself of any suspicion of ignorance concerning medical matters. "You found no marks of violence, as if there had been a struggle?" "The only marks I found were 2 scratches on the right arm of Mrs. Langmore, right above the wrist, and a scratch on Mr. Langmore's left cheek." "Fingernail scratches?" "Possibly. Or else they may have been made by a ring or bracelet, if there was a struggle." "Have you anything else to tell, doctor?" "I have not. I am willing to tell all I know." There was another pause as the young physician stepped back. The coroner was about to call one of the women set to guard Margaret and the Langmore mansion when he suddenly turned. "Miss Langmore, you will please take the stand again," he said, and the girl did so, throwing aside her veil. "Are you in the habit of wearing finger rings and bracelets?" It was a leading question, and several gasped as they heard it. Raymond started to rise up, but then sank back again. "I do not wear bracelets," answered Margaret. "I have 2 rings." "What kind of rings are they?" "One is a plain gold band. It was my mother's wedding ring." The girl's voice sank low suddenly. "And the other is a diamond ring, as you can see," and she held up her hand. "Will you let me have the diamond ring?" "Yes, sir." She took it off. "But please be careful of it, for it is very precious to me." The coroner nodded. "That is all just now," and as Margaret let fall the veil again, he called Dr. Barden to his side. A whispered conversation ensued, and the young physician left with the precious circlet, Margaret's engagement ring, in an envelope. "Margaret, you should not have let him have that ring," whispered Raymond. "How could I help it?" was the low answer. "Oh, this is terrible. I feel as if everybody was trying to look me through and through." "I can understand why Mr. Adams is not here," went on the young man. "Perhaps he has found some important clue, and is following it up," he added hopefully. "They are bound to convict me, Raymond. Isn't it horrible?" "They shall never do it, never!" cried the young man, and then a sharp rapping on the desk terminated the brief conversation and restored quietness to the little courtroom. Chapter 12.